Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson. This is the show where we introduce you to your new favorite author, their work, and we pair it with wine. Cheers, y'all. So it is dry January, so I am committed to the cause. So all of the wine that I'm drinking this month is dry. All right, because I'm no quitter. So if you've been with us before, welcome back. Hopefully you found some amazing shows. You've read some phenomenal books and you want to share. So we want you to continue to come back and watch us and to share the show. If this is your first time with us, welcome. You're in for a treat. We want you to visit where our show lives, NDTV, so you can look at old episodes of Books and Bottles. This is our third year. So we want you to watch old episodes, and also we like for you to watch some of the other shows on the network. It's a great streaming platform. You will not be disappointed. So today I have what I'm gonna call her my home girl, because right now she lives in my home city. She's not from Richmond, but we'll claim her anyway. So I'm gonna read a little bit of her bio. Khadijah Washington is her name. She's a dedicated mental health professional with over 15 years of experience empowering individuals in various fields to enhance their quality of life, expertise, and intuitive abilities for the betterment of mental health and diverse treatment needs. R.E.A.L, which is the title of her book, Radical Empathy, Acceptance of Life, How to Live and Serve Abundantly, is a memoir of generational trauma, mental health, and the work it takes to create sustainable self-care as a wounded healer. Self-care and healing is so crucial for the work, and she's working to change the narrative of generational trauma and burnout. Khadijah created a space for generational trauma breakers that offers tools, strategy, and support. So without further ado, I introduce you to Khadijah Washington. Yay!
Hey, so happy to be here.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am well. Putting up with all this
Good.
crazy weather in Richmond, but doing well.
Listen, when I woke up today, I was thinking, because I'm on the East Coast right now, not in Richmond. But when I woke up today, I was thinking I'm grateful it wasn't snow because it was so much rain and wind. This would have been like a complete catastrophe over here for us. And
Yeah.
especially like Richmond. Richmond is not used to snow. So
No,
thank
yeah.
God it
We're
was
not even used to rain. So
yeah.
we're not even
Thank
used
God
to
it was almost 60 degrees and it was just rain. So,
rain. Yeah.
so
Yes.
thank
It's a
you for
blessing.
joining me on the show. And let's talk about you. I said, now you're my home girl because you're in Richmond, but where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I'm originally from Harlem, New York. I was born and raised in Harlem. I moved to some areas upstate, like kind of metropolitan area, a little area called Rockland County, Spring Valley, still kind of in that area. And then as a teenager, we moved to Virginia. So
Okay.
settled in Virginia, went to Virginia State University, and then
Yay.
also grad school at VCU, and settled in, had a son, all the life things, and have been here ever since.
So I didn't go to VSU, but my daughter did. So I always tell people that's where my money went. So I can claim being a Trojan.
Yeah. Yes. Probably still paying for that. I'm probably still paying for that.
She old now. It's on her. So,
Mhm.
so I like to at the very beginning of your book, and this is such a good question because I read a lot of books and both fiction and nonfiction, and they include self-help, and some of them aren't for me. So you ask, who is this book for? So who is this book
Mm.
for, Khadijah?
I think the book was really written for people who are like myself, people who found themselves called to serve other people who were like them, who had gone through challenges and struggles as in childhood and just in being who they were as a person. So I definitely know it's resonated with a lot of people who are social workers, people who are counselors, people who are in the field of helping people in distress and supporting people in some of their most challenging moments of their life, and just kind of deciding really like how did I even end up here, right? Like what about my life personally made me say, hey, I want to pursue doing more things like this and supporting people like me. And I always have said, just like working with young people especially, like I wish I had a me when I was your age. And that has
Yes,
been sort of like my focus. Is like, dang, if I had a woman like me who could pour into me with all the things that I know now and that
yes,
emotional wisdom, it makes a huge difference. Whether they work listen to it today or whether they listen to it 2 years from now, they have it, right? And once you got it, you
yes.
got it.
I like that. And because so many, I think so many of us could say the same thing. If we had us back then, we could be so different. So there's a theme in your book that deals with generational trauma. Do you feel that a lot of what some of us adults, with some challenges, what we're going through is because we've had some generational trauma that isn't addressed? Because I think all of us,
Mhm.
Black people especially, have some
Yes.
generational trauma. Now, we live here in America.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think that we can pass on trauma. I also think we can pass on strengths. I also think we can
Mm.
pass on resilience. It's just like, having a child, you have a daughter, she has your eyes, she has her grandfather's hands. She like it's a little bit of everything. And I think that's the beautifulness of it is like I always say, like, you don't know what sunshine is until you're in the dark. Like we can't
Mm.
recognize like when something's really working until something is like, wait, this isn't right. And so I think a lot of times in social media, there's this thing about like being toxic and like what your mother did and what your father did. And I've always like just come to a point in your healing journey where you're like, your mother and your father probably did all that they knew to do, and
Yes,
that's what they knew. They did exactly what they knew. I did exactly what I knew. Now, you probably use, like you said, you have a child. If you had to do it all over again, would you do it exactly the same way? Probably not.
absolutely
There'd
not.
be like some
Absolutely not.
change a little bit. Yeah, for most people, they would have like, especially if like you've had a child at 22 and then you have a child at 40. You're not raising those kids probably the exact
Right,
same way because you are a whole
right.
other person, right? So it's sort of like seeing the beauty in the like, yeah, there was some traumas, but like, how did those traumas get there? They didn't really choose. They kind of were born into them, and then they didn't have another way, so they did the best way that they could. So all things can be passed down, and you choose to accept them.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say like we raise them different. My daughter is very vocal. My goodness,
Hmm.
is she vocal. And so I introduced my kids to therapy because I fell in love with therapy probably by the time I was 40. And so I introduced them. And so, she talks about, well, you didn't do this. And so I've had to tell her, well, I didn't know. You know, I only knew what I knew. And I thought I was doing some good stuff, but I ain't know no better. And so, like I said, I had her at 24. So a lot of it was kind of trial and error. I was trying to do better than my parents. Not that they did so badly, but I was
Yeah.
trying to just do differently, from
Yes.
what I
Yeah. I think that's almost everybody that I've spoken with and had talked these conversations with will say they could recognize the strength that their parents gave them. They could also recognize some areas of like, this one probably was a little too much. I'm not going to do that. But it's our own individual journey. And as you're growing, you're also growing, trusting yourself, your intuition, your wisdom. That first child sometimes can be the foundation of like, hey, I know that does or doesn't work for me. So it can be an
yes,
amazing journey.
yes. So I want to go into 'cause I tease social workers a lot. I have a sister in this field. And I
Yes,
think it has to be a labor of love
it does.
for y'all to kind
Yes.
of do this. And so you have a section of your book called The Cost of, this is where I dog ear, I tear pages up. The Cost of Social Work in Life or Death. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
The cost of social worker. I believe that when I was an early social worker, you read some of the stories, right?
Yeah.
I was
Hmm.
paid very little, and I talk about my exact pay. It was like $26,500 getting out of grad school. I worked in a really high pressure career, working with people coming straight out of the hospital. I mean, institution, not just like a 5-day stay. Like they were in there for some years, right? And
Hmm.
people who were in urban areas, the east end of Richmond, like some of the most devastated areas in our state. And I realized, like, as I'm a supervisor now, how much support I truly needed. I was like having days where I wouldn't have lunch. I was driving people around in like 93-degree cars and little like state cars. And it's like the air conditioner not working and this person hadn't taken a bath in 13 days. Like you just have everything thrown at you when you are in this field, really, really working in the field. And so that's why I think that's like my thing like today. Like I've seen everything, I've heard everything. There's nothing too much you're going to say to shock me. But what I realized is I really wasn't taking care of myself. No one ever
Yeah.
stopped and said, when was the last time you took a day off? When was the last time you took a vacation? I was a young, single, working mom who was working maybe sometimes like 2, 3 jobs, trying to figure things out. And no one really gave a lot to my journey, just in like my own support, right? The support was from my
Yeah.
supervisor. Did you get the work done? Right? Did you get the work done?
Hmm.
It never was, did you get to rest? Maybe you take tomorrow off. Maybe you leave early. Those are some things that even today in 2024, we don't hear. I had a number of like health challenges, right, in my late 20s. And I think large in part to the fact that like I really didn't pay attention to how my wellness was. But here I was, like almost licensed therapist telling other people how they should, impact their life and how they need to live and how they need to get off drugs or do better. And here I am like going home in hot sweats, and my whole weekends I'm exhausted from Friday night to Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
And no one
Yeah.
ever talks about it. No one ever talks about how the helper is basically exhausted and how great of a job was I really doing if I couldn't
And
even
how do you
manage to
keep
get.
that off of you? How do you keep it off? Like other people's um issues and trauma. I mean,
Mm,
let's say you're working with this person for an hour or two, you know, can you
yeah,
turn it off? Do you get to turn it
yeah.
off or do you take it with you?
I think a lot of it I took with me, and as I've learned and done some self work for myself and also therapy for myself, right? And what I tell my supervisees now, you have to decide what you can manage, what your capacity is. You have to decide what your capacity is. A lot of times, especially with people of color, right? They'll say, I got to do double to get the same result. I got to do more to da 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 da. Da. I got to compensate, right? In order to be able to be seen of value. And the reality is, I always ask the same question that was taught to me: who does that serve? Right? Who does it
Yeah.
serve for you to be accepted? Who does it really serve to work yourself to death so some other entity can grow their wealth and you can get a paycheck that you're
Yeah. They'll,
barely because I'm making $13 an hour, I'm barely making rent, right? So I
yeah.
barely was getting by, and someone else, right? Was getting billed, some state, some local entity. And if it's not really serving me, my exhaustion is like, yeah, you're gonna be tired. Even doing what you love, you get tired, right? You're gonna need
Yeah.
rest, you're gonna need breaks. But to do all of that and really be in service of someone else's benefit, is for what? And people really struggle with that. Even now, I have to be like, hey, you got too much going on. You have to cut it back, right? And they don't want to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Hear that.
I love the way, like you break things down in this book. Like when you just talked about making the $26,000 a year, right? And you
Mm,
break down
yeah.
everything you had to pay down to the pre-tax, the tax, the
Yes.
healthcare. I mean, you break it down, and it
Yes.
really makes you see what that looks like. You know, what does that look like? And
Right.
that's hard. So I know just based on this, for you to get up every day to do it, there was a lot of love there.
Yes, there was a lot of love because I did always love, even as a child, learning about why people did what they did, why they thought what they thought. Like I knew that I was going to be some kind of Fraser Crane. I knew I was going to be some kind of person that talks to people about their life. So that was always a like, that's probably what I'm gonna do. Now, and I think that's why I still spend time mentoring and talking to social work students and students in mental health, is that although college teaches us how to have these critical conversations and analysis, doesn't always tell us the things like how to take care of yourself, how to make this a marketable skill in order for you to have a sustainable income. And that's where I've kind of like my career is like moved into, right? Is the consultation part of how to run a program, how
Yeah, I
to
think that's
employ.
what you call, what did you call it here? I thought the story of my accidental divine intervention. I
Yeah,
think that's when you kind of came into, I got to do something different.
gotta do
How I'm gonna
something
make,
different.
how I'm gonna make money on this. You know, I love it, but I got to make a living.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's the crazy thing about um I think at that time that's when I had my first mental health business, like late 20s or so. And I was like, and it was again all accidental. The company I was working with was going out of business, and they were like, we're going out of business. You can take your clients with you if you want. And I was like, what's that? How do you do that? So everything was figured out. There was just around the corner from the office was another office that was leasing offices. And I was like, how much do you want? They were like
Yeah.
$300. I was like, okay. But no, when I say there was literally no, like, this is your business plan and this is what you're going to do. And how many clients do you need to break even? Didn't figure that out. Did not
Okay.
like learned as I went and realized, oh, taxes. Oh, oh, oh. So yeah, it's sometimes okay, right? To like slide into something and be like, faith, God, opportunities. But I even now, like working in healthcare, the one I was the only person on my team now who really came from a space of not already being in healthcare, like not already working for a major commercial corporation. And a lot
Okay.
of the reasons that I was hired was because I'd already figured out how to do it on my own,
Yeah.
right? So it was like I had all the skill set of, if I can like jump into the water and figure out how to swim, then I could definitely do this.
Yeah. And
And a
you
lot,
can keep
yeah,
swimming. You can stay out of, that big ocean with the sharks. You can keep on swimming over
bro,
here in nice calm sea.
exactly,
So
exactly.
what does self-care for you look like? Because you do talk about the
Mm,
importance of it throughout. It's kind
yeah.
of another theme that goes through the book. What does that look like for you?
Self-care is a number of things for me. I think it's definitely travel. It's definitely taking it slow. I'll have days where I call it, this is my slow day, and it's like an intentionally slow day. Like I make it so that I don't do more than like one thing, two things, or three things, right? But like never more than that. And it could be the email, it could be the one. Um, I think having time where I'm learning, like I'm actually I talked to a friend the other day and I was like, when was the last time I really did something that I was loving and passionate about? That wasn't about business or more clients or more whatever. I'm just like, hey, I'm interested in watching this book. I mean, watching this movie or reading this book or spending time at this favorite restaurant. So it could be a number of things, but for me, it's definitely travel, relaxation, massages, spas. Um, but I think it's important to also say, I think people ask me about self-care all the time. And it's a complicated question because I think so many people live with so much stress in their life. And then they're like, what
Hmm.
can I do to de-stress? And my first question is always, what do you do? What stress can you take away now? You don't need to de-stress
Yeah.
as much if you don't actually live with stress. But you can't live
Yeah.
in a high amount of toxic stress and then think a vacation for 5 days is gonna like change a
Yeah.
lot of things. That's
Because it
yeah,
takes
get
5 days
away,
to get down, to kind of decompress.
right?
And
It's
then, so you
yeah,
never
if
get
you've
to the
traveled,
fun.
that first travel
Yeah.
day doesn't count. That leaving day doesn't really count. So really you might
Mhm.
have like 2 whole days of like really solid sleep, maybe in a new space, in a new bed. But I always say the best way to go about life is to have everything in your life really full and at the capacity that you can manage versus living at the edge and then going, oh, I'll take my break for that 2 weeks off, or I'll take 10 days. Like, no, just don't go at such a high capacity. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
exhaust yourself. And then they say, well, I'll deserve a vacation, right? At the end of the quarter, I'll deserve and like you don't deserve. Just take it.
Yeah.
No one deserves. You
Yeah.
you rest when you want to rest. When you are ready to rest, no one deserves a weekend. You just take it.
Yeah. And you just gotta figure, it's easier said than done, I know sometimes. But I
Hmm.
know when my boys were teenagers, I have two sons too. And
Hmm.
every day except for Wednesday, somebody had an activity. So I used to tell them
Right.
on Wednesday, if you can't go to the hospital, you can't do nothing because I ain't doing nothing for you on
Right.
Wednesday. Don't
Right.
ask me, if I mean really,
Yes.
you better be about to take your last breath and then see if you can hold that till Thursday because I really don't want to deal with you on Wednesday because I had to make that my day.
Yes,
So
and you can't always wait till Friday. You can't always wait till Friday. Like you need
yeah,
that 2 days of work, a break. For
yeah,
some people, they need that 5 days and then like maybe a slow Monday. Like my Mondays aren't all usually not full. My Fridays usually aren't full. And you, like you said, you do have to negotiate with, and what people also forget to ask for help. Like ask someone, doesn't even if you don't have a partner, like ask someone, hey, maybe your friends' kids are having dinner spaghetti Thursday. Your kids need to go over there, like and have a night to yourself, right? And
yes. Look, I'll sing garlic bread and wine, but
yeah, like it just I always think like I'm always like very community. I'm like, hey, if somebody wants to make dinner and I make dinner on Tuesday and they make dinner on Thursday, like why not just do the whole like why do we have to
that
cook every
gives
single
everybody
day?
a break. I like that. That gives
Yeah, like everybody
everybody
just
a break.
a great meal. Yeah, and give everybody a break. And I think that's where we, as just a cult, like a community, really need to come to is like who is like, I always have my like conspiracy theories on why, right? They want us to work this way and whatever. But if I really like switch it up and I say, like, but what if we just help each other? What if we just co-shared homes and co-shared spaces and co-shared food and we work together and like you wouldn't have to work probably
Yeah,
60 hours a week. You
right.
wouldn't have to cook every single day. You wouldn't have to clean every single night. Or like you'd have
Yeah,
support
we
and
wouldn't
they'd
have to
have
work
support when they needed it.
so hard. Yeah,
You wouldn't have
I
to
like
work
that
so hard.
idea.
But it's a lot of social media. If you really pay attention, it's about diverting us from each other and like being that
Yeah,
independent, whatever. And I'm like, but we actually do better when we can kind of like gather our resources together and work together than trying to do it on your own and working twice as much to have half as much, right?
but listen,
But that's a concept.
I knew
Mhm.
as a kid. I never said I can't wait to be grown. I knew this was ghetto, so
Yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
being a teenager.
yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to be grown. I didn't expect it to be all of this. I don't think there's a good way to prepare. I've been looking for like, what is a good book to prepare kids for adulting? And I have a friend who actually wrote a book for millennials adulting, and it was like, oh, they should have given me something like to prepare me.
Yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes it
yeah,
is that, but I always say, even with my own son who's 21 now, it's like you don't realize. I didn't realize when I was young how much support I would need. And there was a shame about asking for it. There was like a shame about like
yeah,
I should be able to do it by myself. And I said, no, you shouldn't. You really no, if we could figure out how to do all this by ourselves, like some of us are going to become millionaires and some of us are going to work
yeah,
80 hours. Let them people do it, but you don't
yeah.
have to do
You
it.
don't have
Everybody
to
don't
do
have
it.
to do it.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's a powerful
appreciate
word.
you for being here. How do people get a hold of your book? I'm holding it up.
Sure. Thank you. You can it's still on Amazon, Real
Okay.
Radical Empathetic Acceptance of Life. So you can still get it on Amazon. I thought I had some copies here, but I do not. So I'm going to have to order some more. But yeah, it'll still be on Amazon. And I'll be hopefully publishing a second book sometime later this year. So hopefully I
Oh,
come back and talk about
perfect. So
that.
we'll have absolutely. I thank you so much, Khadijah, for being on, Miss Khadijah Washington. Y'all be sure to pick up the book. So just hang on a second, Khadijah. If we have authors out there who'd like to be on Books and Bottles, please send us an email to info@grosprod.com. We'll reach back out to you. I'll give you info where to send your book, and we will schedule a time for you to be on the show. Thank you again for watching Books and Bottles. And until next time, cheers.
Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.